Hey guys, welcome to another episode in the deep playthrough of Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition. In the meantime, in between episodes, I checked out.
Uncle Doctor has already set his shop up.
I
So cool.
checked out which collectibles I missed. I missed one diary and two postcards. The diary was in a safe house near the house of the charfish. Somehow I overlooked it. It was a very small safe house, but yeah, apparently I missed it. And the postcards, that's even more embarrassing. One was actually in the bridge area where we just came from. While I was really looking about there for missed collectibles, it was actually in the area where I took down a couple of guys silently. Down below there was like a postcard on the wall I missed. And oh no, by the way, the other postcards, this is one postcard where we just came from. The other postcard was also in that safe house, I missed it. But the diary was actually in one of the last buildings that I cleared out. If I look at the screenshots online, it was totally obvious. It's like a big thick letter which was right smack in the middle planted on a table. So how I could have missed that, I have no idea. But anyways, so I think I have 11 out of 12 or 12 out of 13 diaries and 3 out of 5 postcards found. So the score is still pretty okay. But in the next sections I really would like to get it up to 100%. Probably that's over ambitious, but that will be my aim. Anyways, we are on the train getting to the next area or region, but it's now time for a bit of exposition, so that is probably what this episode is all about. And also let's see what is in this notebook that we haven't read yet. So here we go. And also we have to listen to the radio sometimes.
Kenel, come in. Do you read me, Kenel? More hold here. I'm in Gemende. Over. Kenel, come in. Kenel, over. That's just great. Well, I'll try later.
Right. Number 45
Attention.
is music.
This is the Special Restoration Committee speaking from the ARC project base.
I wanted
Everyone
to
who
say.
can hear me. Everyone still loyal to the cause. Proceed to the rally point. Rally point location is code 1811-79. Area 18-5. I repeat. Proceed to the rally point. Rally point location is code 1811-79. Area 18-5. Only by standing together shall we overcome any and all obstacles.
Alright, that was not music, no music channel. It was some kind of a military communique.
Why are you guys kissing Menchikov's ass so much? All this advances even arrived in your goods. Not even 2 years.
You better reconsider your position on Meshtikov. Did you forget who started trading with the convicts from Zolotoy?
Huh? Well, that was Zakhar's idea. And Zakhar is the man. He crossed Baikal. Alone. We'd sign up to anything he proposes at once. Well, Menshikov, I couldn't care less about.
Aren't you getting too big in your head? You're so cool now that the relay gang is off your case? Don't fall off that high horse.
Go to hell, Dan. All right. I can live with listening to Menshikov if you're so fond of him.
Enough of that shit already. The important part is that your good is still around, and you guys are too.
You're right. That is the important part. Well, give my regards to Menshikov. Over and out.
You devil. Over and
Alright, let's see if there will be a repeat of this transmission or a new entry. Let's wait a bit. Not much. Music channel.
I remember looking back, standing in the rain, and seeing you cry. We weren't talking much anymore.
Alright, let's leave that one on. And now let's get back from the radio. Is that possible?
Seems like everywhere we've been.
How long have you been on the road for?
God damn
I've
it.
been listening to the radio too. And there was not a single transmission about any occupying force.
Alright, we can leave it on. Oh, it's very convoluted controls here, so... Alright, we have some new entries. Diary. When it... This one we already read. We stopped 100 clicks from Moscow to check our Geiger counters. The thing is, they're all in the green as if they're in a conspiracy. Still, this amazing piece of news doesn't really impress anyone that much. The guys are all confused as to what to do next, and I'm just waiting for answers and hoping the commander, whom until recently I trusted implicitly, is going to be extremely persuasive in his reasoning. We already read that one. After all those years in the underground, the air of the surface seemed incredibly fresh, intoxicating, but that was not the cause of the crew's euphoria. Our journey finally had a definite purpose, provided by the transmission from the government bunker in the Urals. We spent 20 years thinking that neither the government nor military high command had survived. As it turned out, they were still around. Where were they while we were eating each other alive in the metro? We had lots of questions to ask them once we reached Yamantau, if we ever would. The ruins of our country were under enemy control, according to Miller, and we would have to fight through to our goal. A small team against the occupation armies. What chance did we have to succeed? To get some answers. Yet, setting out on our recon mission, Anna and I did not ponder these questions. We just kept filling our lungs with that sweet spring, with that sweet fresh air, splashing about the spring puddles like children out for the first walk after a long sickness. When I docked the old and battered, but still surprisingly watertight boat at the Gulf, it became apparent why our arrival terrified the locals. These fanatics are for some reason convinced that it was electricity that brought about mankind's demise, so they avoid any and all technology like the plague. On the other hand, they have a grain of reason in their belief, for technical progress did in fact enable our self-destruction. They didn't get me with their trap thanks to a little girl and her mother who had been held by the fanatics in that murky and damp ruin for about a year. If the locals would do such things, was there any real hope that they'd be inclined to let us cross the bridge? Maybe there was. Katja and Nastya made it out to the church successfully, but the reinforcement that had arrived to spring the trap on the dangerous heretic that I was saw me. Luckily, I was able to get away without killing anyone. Besides, we obtained a reliable source of information on the cultists, so we hoped we could find some basis for a dialogue with them. Katja and Nastya didn't just tell us about the fanatics, but also about Chris, a traveling mechanic hated by the fanatics because of his traits. It's their loss really. They can go back to using flint tools for all we care, while we were lucky to have such a versatile handyman in our crew now. While I was out looking for Crest, Anna managed to get into an adventure of her own. She fell down some cellar and hit her head, knocking herself out and breathing in some poisonous fumes from chemicals abandoned there who knows how many years ago. She seemed to have suffered no serious injury, though I was still mad at her father. His paranoia went way too far, making us all see enemy banners in every old wreck. We found no occupying forces in this backwater, even the chemicals in the cellars seemed to be wholly domestic. Luckily, they were long past their expiry date, or so it seems. Getting the rail car left by Crest in the abandoned loading terminal was not easy. The half-flooded building was where the enormous catfish, one of the pillars of the local crazy parody of our religion, made its lair. I must give the fanatics their due though. They did turn the building into a versatile shrine, even though housed not just the catfish but also hordes of human-like mutants, which were, of course, overjoyed to see me. The fish didn't make the task any easier either, so it had to be put down. I wonder how Silentius would go about explaining the fact that their precious starfish was killed by a mere heretic. Should he ever find out about the fact? The starfish was but a common fish, not a god or a demon. It was the people that gave us much more trouble, since the people always put up a fiercer fight than any gods. In contrast to gods, they have something to lose after all. At the end of the day, I had successfully exchanged some ammo for a rail car in great condition, more than capable of tugging the passenger carriage that had brought Katja to this accursed place one day back to the Aurora. I had to take some trash out first though, wading through mud amongst the rusty railroad carriages and dead husks of abandoned buildings. I had for some reason expected to have left the bandits along with Moscow's poisonous air far, far back. Now I do, of course, understand that it was rather silly of me. There's no changing the human nature, and anarchy could only make the worst qualities of it present themselves. The beautiful is always unique, while the ugly is surprisingly uniform. These bandits, were they hardened criminals or just people left desperate and robbed of most of their humanity by the war that had blown over them? Differed from their metro counterparts by clothes and names at most, their actions robbing, murdering and capturing innocent people to sell into slavery were exactly the same. These bandits were the hardened... My opinion of the fanatics notwithstanding, only a complete and utter bastard could have left them in the hands of the bandits. Naturally, the bandits would keep terrorizing the locals afterwards. They might even be torturing some new victims at this very moment, but at least I saved somebody, simply because I could not have done otherwise. It was pointless to even try to talk the fanatics into letting us cross the bridge, so our only option was to take the matter into our own hands and lower the movable section of the bridge, regardless of their opinion on that. The problem was we couldn't really get into the bridge from the shore, so we had to use the last remaining path of entry, the river, where the fanatics could not expect us from. That path could only be rendered accessible with the help of a tugboat we would rent from the river traders. Luckily, the trader's captain proved to be no fool and surrendered immediately after glancing into the barrels of our weapons trained on his head. The boat's crew remained completely oblivious of our infiltration until we took the situation under control, so no blood was spilled. For us, the bridge was little more than an obstacle to cross, but for the fanatics it was a lot more. It was their safe haven from the terrible demons of electricity, their home, their temple and their fortress. No wonder they weren't exactly keen on letting just anyone through. That said, their guards were sure less than competent. Lulled into complacency by the safety of their home ground, so much so that Duke and I managed to sneak into the very heart of their cult completely undetected. All that stealth and special operation training Miller had us go through definitely paid off. And we got a drop on Silentius, who was left with no option but surrender. We left Volga behind. There we met people who had spent all these years living in the open and never heard about the war still going on, or the conditions we had to tolerate living in the metro. When I received the signals from the survivors outside of Moscow for the first time, I thought the people of the surface would be different from us, would be free from fear and hopelessness. In the metro, we knew we were not living but merely passing time before death, so for some reason I expected the people who knew they had a proper tomorrow to be somehow wiser, more free and noble than us. I was wrong. They were just as miserable and lost as we were. Perhaps the problem was not the metro, but us all along. If here, on the surface, we continue the same things we did underground, we might never get a chance to build a future. A vast world stretches before us, and I'm sure we will find what we are looking for if the occupying forces don't get us on the way. Alright, let's put off this radio. We just finished the stations. Another music channel, you can leave that on. And nothing here. Alright, diary. Moscow we already read. I will read it once again to refresh the memory. It's pretty short. When it has been years since anyone heard anything but static and white noise on the radio, who could still believe we're not alone on this earth? My wife, my comrades from the order, my friends, people from my station. Nobody believes me. They are sure that there's nothing on the radio, sure that save for us who hit in Moscow metro, there were no survivors of the last war. We are alone on this planet, and in the metro it's common knowledge. But I did hear that call on the radio with my own ears. Yes, it was immediately drowned out by the static, but I had heard it. Which means that somewhere out there, under the skies, there's still a habitable place. We're not doomed to live the rest of our lives on the ground. Still, nobody believes me. Alright, we stopped 100 clicks from Moscow to check our Geiger counters. The thing is that they are all in the green. We already read this one. We just read this one. And now we are at spring. We left Volga behind. The endless expanses of Russia stretch before us now. The bridge dwellers had finally decided to believe that we were not demons and let us pass. Anna was right. We invaded their world and it's not up to us to destroy it. No matter how stupid it may seem. Electricity is a sin. Is that really worse than the lies we were told in the metro about how the whole world was dead and there was nowhere to go? Everybody in the tunnels bought that convenient lie. Once we reach Yamantau, we will at least know if that lie was justified, since so far we haven't met any signs of enemy occupation. Alright, the crew, we have a new entry. I think I already read all these, right? Why are they exclamation marked? Alright, I'm just reading the end. Maybe there's like a new section added. Anna, you wanted to believe me and you couldn't. You tried to not pay attention to your father and you did. The colonel firmly believes that our country is occupied and that the war is still going on. And that makes us jumpy. Makes us expect an attack at every turn. Makes us look for traces of enemy presence everywhere. He has us riled up. And Anna is not immune to that. She was so eager to find the occupying forces in a tiny abandoned village near the bridge over Volga that she saw an American banner in a mere old t-shirt. She went to investigate and fell through the roof of an old chemical storage silo. Luckily the chemicals seemed to have been long since expired and Anna got away with just a few bruises. Needless to say, there was not a trace of foreign troops presence anywhere close. Yeah, so there are new sections to these entries. So I'm now checking whether there's anything more new here. Try to recognize what I already read earlier. You were the only one who didn't consider me mad when I spent days on the surface listening to the radio and fruitless attempts of receiving signals from the other survivors. I think we already read that. Yeah, it's only the last section that is new. So now Colonel Miller. And I dragged his daughter into a maelstrom none of us might ever emerge from. That is, we already read. I dragged the colonel into the worst adventure of his life. He had to commit high treason to save his daughter. With me in tow, he is convinced that the war is still going on. That Moscow had to fake death. prevent the final murderous strike from being launched against it. But Anna is still his daughter and I'm still one of his soldiers, so he, in his advanced age, risks everything he has. His reputation, his position in the metro, the most of his order. Everything to save us too, and maybe somehow get himself out of this mess. We are going to the Yamata Mountain, where the Supreme Command HQ is located. Only the true government of our destroyed country could now pardon the colonel for treason. Of course, if they agree to even listen to him at all. There's one problem though. It's been a few days since we left Moscow, but we have yet to find a trace of the occupying forces. Alright, Damir. We already read this one. Duke, new entry. A shame we don't have... wait. Duke. It's always first to shout me, no matter how hard and dangerous the mission may be. That's what we already read. Now I think a new part. A shame we don't have any medals in the order, otherwise Duke would be plastered with them. He keeps looking up to the more experienced fighters, competing with them for the most kills, missions and wounds. For some reason, with a little typo there, he pays particular attention to comparing his achievement with me. Perhaps it's because I'm closest to his age. Anna once said about him, quit your whining, Artyom. There are people here who dream of becoming like you. About Duke. Was he right? We already read that one as well. So now I think we go to the new part, the last one. Igor likes being called the Duke of Darkness, but you can hardly find a lighter-hearted guy. He's but a brat taking crazy risks all the time, but Lady Luxmal stood brave. If not for the tricky plate on Silentius, that old obscurant, our whole operation could have failed. Duke, my friend, your star is undoubtedly on the rise and soon you will outshine us all. We be of one blood, he and I'm proud of it. If not for the tricky plate on Silentius, I wonder what trick that is. I forgot that. Let's continue. I wanted to stop the music because it's a bit loud, but let's read along a bit. But now he is free, just like the rest of us, and if we ever come back to Moscow, this is the mechanic, we'll settle our scores with Hanseatic leadership together. Yermak says that every man has a destination in life, a place where the fate leads him to, and whenever life becomes hard, sometimes unbearably so, I always recall his words, this might be the end of the line, but it is still not our destination. Get up, walk on. Thank you, Yermak. Alright, that is... that was already an existing entry. Idiots. Idiot likes talking a lot, but he never actually says much if you push him. Save for his usual on one end. Yeah, we already read this. On one hand, this could be true, while on the other, if you feel that the truth is close enough to touch, talk to idiots. He'll confuse you completely in no time. One thing about him that I don't understand at all is what could he even be looking for fighting in the orders ranks. Alright, Alyosha. We already read that one. Sam. I think we already read that. While we were waiting for the Aurora's repair to be completed, thinking on how to cross the river, Sam, in light of our constant mentions of occupying forces, hypnotized himself into believing that the colonel didn't trust him. It must be heartbreaking to have served a commander for 20 years with unquestioning loyalty, only to be considered a traitor. But it must be equally heartbreaking to have come so close to your old enemy, only to learn that your country might still be there after all. And if the war still is going on, whose side are you on, Sam? Who are you? Stepan. The first paragraph we already read. We're lucky to be on Stepan's side. Having him as an enemy would be a disaster. Right until meeting Katja, Stepan has never defied the Colonel. But when Miller didn't want to let the woman and her daughter board the Aurora, he started a real quarrel. The Colonel was noticeably thrown off, while the rest of us immediately understood what was going on. Still, as any good commander, Miller quickly saw through Stepan and let himself being talked into letting Katja and Nastya aboard. With this addition, Stepan was sure to never leave the crew. Tokarev. The first paragraph we already read. Tokarev knows everything there is to know about weapons, even more, and can talk about them for hours, but is not really interested in much else. Still, he doesn't just care for our firepower, but also works on our gear, constantly adjusting and inventing new things. Laboring day and night to make sure we all perform to the best of our ability without being hindered by inferior equipment. What would we do without him? Yeah, we already read that as well. On a side note, he seems to be quietly and hopelessly unrequitedly in love with my Anna. He's always worried about her, thinking of her, talking about her, but I can't even bring myself to feel jealous. We already read that as well. Katja and Nastya, this is a new one. I can't really imagine what Katja and Nastya had been through and how they managed to keep their sanity, much less remain as optimistic as they are. A little girl and a tender woman proved to be tougher than fate, taking all the blows it could throw at them squarely, and those blows were many and mighty. They had arrived at Volga with a group of migrants who were out on a quest for a better life. That quest ended with them finding a new faith, and their death along with it. Of course, Silentius didn't kill anyone himself. He didn't even order anyone killed. Still, there's a holy ritual where an initiate must dispose of an electric anomaly to be accepted into the fold. How is it different from a murder in cold blood? It's no wonder. Wait, I don't understand why they say it says and their death along with it. By the way, let's turn off the radio. No, wrong button.
There's so much regular chatter. So many stories. Dad says all those are coded transmissions, that they all have hidden meaning, but why would they be so secretive? Why aren't they using this railroad? Why don't they at least control its key junctions? Why did they not install any roadblocks?
Let's just leave the radio on, by the way. It's looping now, but that first song is pretty okay. Where were we? Anya and Nastya. But why does it say here that they their death as well? They had arrived at Volga with a group of migrants who were on a quest for a better life. That quest ended with them finding a new faith and their death along with it. So it's not the death necessarily of Anya and Nastya, but of the group of migrants that were with them. It's no wonder that the Colonel let Stepan and Anna coax him into letting Katja and Nastya aboard the Aurora, even though there must be numerous dangers waiting for us. Still, I would argue that these ladies are tougher than some battle-hardened troopers. Besides, Katja is a trained nurse and we will most probably need all the medical expertise we can get. Alright, then we have Crest. This is also a new one, a new member to the team. An avid storyteller, a talented mechanic, and a natural-born adventurer who traveled all across the vast expanses of this threatening world of the surface, so alien to us. Who'd been through hundreds of scuffles and struck thousands of deals, quite a few of which could well be of the less scrupulous sort. I don't know if Crest will be journeying with us for long, but I am not surprised he had such an easy time fitting in. Right from the start he gave us the hand with fixing the Aurora, gave us the rail car he'd been using in his adventures, and then went with us on a mission to capture the tugboats. Giving Duke and me the cover we needed to infiltrate the bridge. It's no wonder that even our usually cautious colonel had no second thought about welcoming Chris into the crew. Alright, that are the characters. New world. With no state and its laws, with no pockets of civilization, which the new civic society could crystallize around, with no hope of ever going back to normal life, should one be surprised with the race of anarchy and its consequences, bandits constructing their rudimentary societies around the basis aspects of the human nature. Even in the tunnel of Moscow Metro, where every meter has been divided between the quasi-states attempting to uphold some semblance of order on their turf, the gangs flourish. What could one expect from a world of surface where there is simply nobody and nothing to stand up to them? On the banks of Volga there seem to be a great many of bandit gangs. They have somehow agreed on the division of spheres, or spheres of influence, and are more or less happily coexisting, robbing the few remaining or newly founded in the less polluted regions peaceful survivor settlements, and selling their denizens as slaves on the markets of the south. Fanatics, the worship of giant mutant catfish, intense hatreds towards the technology and outsiders, coupled with intense suppression of all individuality and independent thought within the community. What else could one reasonably expect from a mix of a primitive mysticism with classic religion, seeped with good old founder's cult of personality? I must give the fanatics their dues, though. By banding together, they managed to survive in this wild world, settling a bridge and turning it into a veritable fortress, which we had no choice but to take seriously. Their best fighters, the lightning fighters, can fight back against the electric anomalies and even gangs of bandits, compensating for their lack in training by strong motivation rooted in their fanaticism. Exhibition, my home station, now part of the Commonwealth, together with Alexeyevskaya and Riskaya. We already read this one, and this one as well. I think. Anna and I were captured by their patrol after we saw the Aurora entering the city perimeter, and just for that terrible crime I was put to the gun. Anna's agony at the moment is something I will not forgive them for as long as I live. Yeah, we already read that one. By the way, I'm now turning down the radio because I don't really like that song.
If they're even out here. This is the main transport artery after all. Maybe they are not here at all.
Alright, creatures, any new?
Came here.
Yes, quite a lot.
They're already gone.
Alright, the Watchmen, these annoying beast
Where
hunts.
to?
Remember?
Remember? Neither Katya nor Crest have ever met them.
And if you
Though
see...
we seem to be doing just fine even without them. It's like Middle Ages.
And if you see one, you
Excellencies is
better
treating people like slaves, getting them killed.
dispose of it immediately.
I believe they had it worse without his lies, nonsense, and human sacrifices.
Otherwise it might haul and call in the rest of the pack, and it will howl as soon as it sees you.
Fighting each other.
Demons.
And nobody even thought you could live outside.
These giant flying mutants, comfortably occupying the position of the apex predator in the food chain of the poisoned wasteland, stretching above the tunnels of Moscow Metro, have, thanks to their enormous physical strength, speed and aggressive demeanor, successfully settled a huge territory. That is hardly surprising, as there are very few animals capable of ever facing a demon. Those that could fight it one-on-one and win are even fewer and further between, while a demon can easily fly away from any of them. Luckily, because of these strengths, the demons, like the large birds of prey of the past, prefer to live and hunt alone or in very small groups, and thus do not present an immense threat to a careful traveler. Alright, we already read that one. Humanimals. Like the other mutants created by radioactive fallout, these nightmarish creatures feel right at home in the inhospitable post-war world. Despite clearly being descended from humans, these creatures are not really that smart, resembling apes in their behavior. They live in packs, don't use any tools, and defend themselves mostly by throwing stones from a distance. One such mutant is not much of a threat, but a fight against a pack of these is hard to survive. Our first encounter with these creatures happened on the banks of Volga. In the open, they seemed harmless and even pathetic, their ugly appearance accentuated by the sluggishness of their movements. Yet inside the abandoned loading terminal building, they proved to be more than just troublesome to me. It became apparent that besides throwing stones, they were also capable of ambushing their prey by hiding in shallow water. Yes, indeed, that was in the charfish house. Pretty cool mechanic. Charfish, generally a giant mutant catfish terrorizing the fishermen, would seem to be a dubious object of worship at best. A little typo in there. But Silentius still managed to indoctrinate the locals. He brainwashed into believing the monster was sent to the earth with a divine mission. Shrimp female. Ah, you have a male and a female version. A mysterious aquatic life form, seemingly crustacean. Of course, you can't be sure these days. As far as I know, nobody ever thought of properly researching them and finding their proper place in classification. What we know is that they have strong carapaces. Carapaces are aggressive predators and as such inherently dangerous. The females of the species tend to attack in packs, spitting corrosive mucus from the distance, or when they think they can easily finish their prey, going in for a kill with their disgusting leech-like mouths. Shrimp male. A mysterious aquatic life form, seemingly crustacean. Of course, you can't be sure these days. As far as I know, nobody ever thought of properly researching them and finding their proper place in classification. What we know is that they have extremely strong carapaces, are aggressive predators, and as such inherently dangerous. Here it says they have strong carapaces, and the males have extremely strong carapaces. The males of the species tend to live solitary lives that are extremely territorial. Once they see anything they deem a threat, they immediately attack, using their massive forelimbs as clubs and shields at once. A dog. The common dogs seem to be no match for the messed up world of the surface. But they manage to survive despite being surrounded by mutants and human enemies, so they definitely are a threat to be considered. Especially when you consider their keen senses and ability to easily alert their masters to your presence. A lurker. While lurkers are far from being the strongest or meanest mutants around, either in the metro or on the surface, they are still a danger to be considered, especially for a lonely wanderer. They are a colonial burrowing species. As such, they protect themselves from the larger predators by constructing lots of interconnected burrows in close proximity to each other and hiding in them if sufficiently threatened, while keeping the surroundings under constant observation in search for danger or potential prey. When in a lurker-infested area, you can never guess which burrow a bloodthirsty creature might appear from, though you can bet it will most often be the one you're not looking at. Alright, that were the animals. And then we still have some equipment to read through. And I will be doing that in the next episode, and then also some weapons probably. Yeah, so this is more of a lore episode. I will mark it as such in the description of the video, so not that anybody looking for some action and shooting is put off by me only reading a diary or some kind of a journal. But anyways, hope you still enjoyed it somewhat. I hope to see you in the next one. And for the meantime, do not forget, always do keep on gaming. See you later.